It comes down to that word yet for me. I think that word yet has been something that I use in TV. I'll think, should I cast another show of this topic? Do people give a heck yet? Or yet? Like, when it's not about I get one shot to make a difference. It's about, how do I get multiple shots to make that change? Sometimes that means I have to change projects. Sometimes that means I have to change locations. Sometimes I have to wait just simply for the next year because of the cycle of media and just, seasons and how people, operate. But I have to be mindful of this, of the linearity of my success, and I'm open to outcomes. And some of those outcomes are financial, and some of them are relationship driven, and some of those relationships turn into financial, and some of the financial turns into relation. And not all of it is perfect, and not all of it, connects brilliantly, but it's all in my life, and that's what makes it make sense. And none of it's holding me back.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Vinnie Potestivo. Vinnie is an Emmy award-winning media advisor who helps clients leverage their media exposure, find fame, and make impact. Vinnie is the editor-in-chief of I Have a Podcast and is responsible for discovering and amplifying the voice of independent podcasters worldwide. As a network executive at MTV Networks, he discovered talent and developed new ways to support their goals, pioneering the way brands and business owners could contribute to their public narrative by making them stars and producers of their own television series. Early hits included Punk'd, The Osbournes, TRL, Eighth and Ocean, Wild and Out, and The Challenge. Since then, he and his team at VPE.TV have continued to be well-trusted connectors who develop and distribute original content across all media platforms, especially podcasts. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Vinnie. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
What the heck? That's the best intro ever. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, bud.
Oh, I'm honored to have you. I'm actually quite excited. I appreciate you being on. Honestly, I really do. So one of the things that I focus on before we get into the nitty gritty of where you are today and all the fantastic things that you do to serve others is I start with a person's origin story. And it's not just what's your background. I'd like you to share whatever you're willing to be vulnerable with from your earliest recollections of little Vinnie to where you are today, because I find people connect with Vinnie and will want to search you out the more they understand and know, like, and trust you. And that sometimes is sharing those little things that you never share with somebody else that happened when you were 6 years old, or something that happened that was, it could be the good, bad, and ugly. It doesn't have to always be good, because sometimes the traumas in our childhood make us into the warriors that we are today to serve others. So Vinnie, could you do me a favor and share your earliest recollections with the audience and myself?
Yeah, and by the way, I agree with you. I think that my childhood gave me, I developed some coping mechanisms that I was able to turn into my superpowers in my late teens and early 20s. I'm the oldest. Growing up, I was the oldest of 4, and I'm currently the oldest of 6 children. I bring that up because, I played a lot with my siblings. That was my friend group. We didn't have cable. I played video games. We didn't have internet. I walked to the library. I didn't know what I didn't know in a truly blessed way, by the way. I feel horrible for people growing up knowing the amount of information that they do not have. I can't imagine suffering through imposter syndrome at a point in time as a teenager where you're trying to figure out your identity. I think it's funny that us, I would say me at least, I'll talk about, I don't want to generalize. As a 45-year-old, I think it's funny that those mindset things creep in to life later on in life, and they have this funny impact on us. But I wouldn't wish that on the younger version of me. My parents made some decisions that I didn't have control over, but affected me. And ultimately, in a single parent household with my mom, babysitting my younger brother and sister, and prioritizing their goals, making things happen for them that I could make happen. Some defense mechanisms start creeping in right about now. My ability to put people before me is actually a pretty strong defense mechanism in reaction to not being disappointed in something. So I learned to not want things, but want what other people wanted. Because if I can make that, happen for them, then it was a big win. If I couldn't make that happen for them, at least I was the person that tried. I said I'm the oldest of four at this point. Individualism comes into play really early in my life. Actually, my father has the same name as me, and I wanted my own identity. Ultimately, when I went to college, the day that I stepped foot on Wagner College campus, also the day that I got my first email address, I have to point out, that was not an AOL email address, where I really got to choose my first name, Vinnie, Vinnie. Someone told me IE is in French and Italian, it's feminine ending. And I wanted to, at a point in time in the 90s where I didn't have the rights that I do now, I wanted to signal to those who knew that I fell into a certain group of people. And like back then, it's crazy to say this, just 25, maybe even 30 years ago now, there I am knowing the importance of my name, the identity that comes in the ownership of my name, and how proud I am to put my name on projects. That's something that continues on through my entire career. The company is called Vinnie Potestivo Entertainment. And I actually credit my grandmother for giving it to us, but that pride in having the name, it wasn't her name, by the way. She married my grandfather, so she got it, but she divorced him and she kept the name for the children. And I remember that story as a child, that she kept that name, the pride that she had in creating children who had that name, the attachment she wanted to them. And in 1998, when I was a senior in college and I started my company, it ended up being called Vinnie Potestivo Entertainment. I almost was going to call it Fran's Kitchen because of my grandma. But I grew up, as I said, in a single parent household, also in my grandmother's home. So 6 o'clock was Matlock, Murder, She Wrote. What was the one with Twilight Zone? And then then I have a little pasta fagioli with grandma, and then go upstairs and eat dinner with mom. And it was a creative, and also it was it wasn't necessarily a creative environment, but I think I turned to my creativity to get through a lot of life's obstacles. I hardly ever looked at something as a challenge to my sexuality or a challenge to my identity or a challenge to what I'm capable of. I took them on as creative challenges. It's I don't understand the mindset or why it happened, but I thought to myself, these obstacles, for example, I don't have financial obstacles because I have no money. I have a creative obstacle. I got no budget. So I have to be creative without having a budget. That's my obstacle. Having no money wasn't my obstacle. And I think looking at life that way allowed me to value friendships, relationships. Like I became a casting director at MTV. I didn't know a single person. It's like a weird thing to say, but like you would think someone in casting and talent would need to know, those would be the people that know everybody, right? You would think, oh, in the industry, those are the ones who know everybody. I knew not one single person. I was just really good at meeting people once I was given the opportunity to. I was also really good at organizing information. So in college, when I started my company, I actually took out an ad out of frustration and complete desire to control my own destiny and fate. I took out an ad on something called Backstage, which is where you would go to look for talent that were not non-union, unrepresented talent. And I said, I'm Vinnie Potestivo. I'm looking to build my casting files. If you're looking for future projects, send me your headshots. I didn't even have my company name. Student Box 577, One Campus Road, Wagner College. You know, I didn't even think that I'm asking actors to send in headshots to a student at what I had under 700 submissions sent to me. And over a month, I got in trouble. I had like my Mark Zuckerberg moment. You can't start businesses on campus in your dorm room. You can't put this email. You can't put your snail mail address as your business address. I'm like, I didn't do any of that. I just gave the universe my address and told them where to find me. But this responsibility kicked in. You know, I'm a tech guy. I'm a data guy. So I knew Microsoft Excel and Access, and I understood how macros could move data sheets into spreadsheets, and I was using spreadsheets and I'm geeking out now. Like, and I was a database compliancy officer for Credit Suisse First Boston in college. I did like the Y2K compliancy. I part of the documentation to help launch the euro. Like super tech data driven world. I'm way too creative verbally. The personality piece, as y'all hear already behind a microphone, way too verbal in those situations. So they always made me like the president of the computer club, so I would go do things, you know, campus wide and come back. But it was that tech skill. It was the thousands of hours working in the computer center that gave me the ability to organize the information, that when I called out for this information that I wanted, I didn't know how I was going to get it. I just knew it was in the people. I didn't go looking at like places for people. I just went to a place where I knew people were looking for opportunities. And I said, these are the people that I want to get to know. And dozens of those people that came into that first 7, I can still list them by name. They're still extremely active. I see them all the time in commercials and films and TV. And it's like, I feel like, you know, sometimes De Niro, you see these big actors have these like classes of like friends that all become famous together. I kind of have that with podcasters now, which is really cool to be discovering podcasters. And I have that from 20 years of helping people leverage their stories in front of a TV audience by the work that I did at MTV. It's one hell of a story though. It's been fun.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think everyone will get to be
awesome.
You know, not everyone will get to have that job, but like everyone can know what it's like to not know a single person in the room. Try to figure out how to connect with people quickly. You know, quickly was the thing I learned because of my youth. How to earn the respect of an adult real quick is something I had perfected by the time I was a teen. Mostly because I gave them a lot of space and error. This space to make errors, a lot of grace space for I realized adults were more terrified of making the wrong decisions than they were to make the right ones, to be really honest, based on my experience with parents. And that was something that I took with me. When you realize how much control you have over your life, the narrative of the perception of your life, you know, and it was time for me to go to school, and I almost went for. I did go for psychology. I thought I was going to be a psychologist, but I thought I don't want to change people's lives and mess with it. That sounds like very serious stuff. I'll just go do that on MTV with reality television and change lives that way. But those are pieces you give me and that I collaborate with you on, and it's more about shaping the story than informing the story. I trust you to inform the story. And luckily they trust me to shape the story, and it's been a great collaborative process.
Wow. I look forward to getting to know you better so you can help me shape my story better.
Yeah, we'll do it here. We'll do it here.
because you're, you know, brother, that was so heartfelt. You are obviously doing what you've done. You've become a fantastic storyteller, but it's storytelling so much more than just telling the story. It's emoting, you know, and having that emotion and that connection and that tonality, and you have it in spades. So I so appreciate that. I really resonated with, you know, you being a child and playing outdoors and going to the library, and just what kids today miss. Like my own children, some of them missed it because they would be so engulfed in television or the drama of life, instead of realizing that there's so much to discover, there's so much to explore and learn. And so I appreciate you talking about that. And I really resonated with the fact people before me, it was your defense
Yeah.
mechanism. I had that too. I was a
Yeah.
sickly kid. I had, health issues. I had like severe health issues that I still deal with today in regards to my physical, like my spine. I have a rare degenerative disease. And literally, I got ostracized because of it. So I was always trying to please everybody, adults, kids, so that I'd be liked. I wanted to be that kid that was liked. So I was always the first to volunteer to help. And I,
Yeah.
I
Right.
didn't really call it my defense until you said that. But you're right.
Yeah.
It was a defense. It was a
Oh,
protection. It was
and
my
it just,
shield. It was
and we
my
layer it
shield.
on, and then we become the fixer. It's
Oh,
not just
thank
like
you. Yeah.
it's not just let me make you happy, but let me make you happy at the most vulnerable point in time where you are, so that like you can really truly remember, my impact, and you start looking for those opportunities. And you know what, in life, and I say this as a vetted casting director who fell into you find what you're looking for. It's out there.
Yeah.
It's looking for you also. I truly believe in the law of attraction. The 10 years that I worked at MTV, I worked with giant stars that even became bigger stars than I could have ever imagined. And people are like, how did you find that many people? I'm like, oh, I just told everyone that I was working with what I was looking for. And I didn't look for a single person. All I did was tell people, hey, I'm looking for a young female artist to do a new show about a young female artist on MTV. That would be cool. And that landed quickly into the Simpson camp, and then Jessica Simpson and Ashley Simpson, and then quickly that show starts. I'm not saying I'm the one that made that happen, but these are the conversations that my
You're a
department,
connector, though.
yeah, these are
For
my specific department was responsible for having these conversations with talent. And what I did was open the door at MTV to be, I realized like I was the collaborator at MTV where most of my contacts were now outside of the network. And I realized that so for example, I'm in New York, so I would go out at night and I would meet the artists who are coming into New York because they're performing tomorrow, or maybe they were going to be, we had a show called Total Request Live, TRL, and people came to the MTV studio in Times Square. And so I would meet them before they came to MTV. So there was an awareness of who I was, so that when I go down to the studio, which I already had access to, and I already now have a pre-existing relationship with the artist, I'm able to, in my space, have a conversation with my authority with the opportunities that I can present to people. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this because TJ Lavin is in my mind right now. When you are lucky enough to work at a company like MTV was in the late 90s and early 2000s, where they served youth culture, not they served content, but they served youth culture, where they created words and vocabulary, punked, for example, that we still use to this day, that our grandparents even, know the difference between punked and a prank. And that's a big difference, by the way. It's all in the storytelling. And I think Ashton Kutcher, showed us that.
Yeah, he's amazing.
It was cool. It was cool to work with those people who had to pass through MTV to get their story seen. I remember Ashton didn't have a production company. Punked was his first production in his production company. He since sold that production company and obviously went on to prove that he can make content, not just star in it. And that's what he used Punked for. And I can just go on and on and on about the small decisions he made.
You started a pioneering phase, though, for many people, including yourself. As you were helping others, I see and hear that you were also developing and growing yourself along with others. So you were serving others, which is what I love.
Always a steward.
And and teaching them how to do the same and continue to evolve. And that's remarkable.
I appreciate this
Congratulations.
perspective. Can I say here, there's one little thing also at work here, sort of in a negative way, and this is a defense mechanism. It's in my defense to make sure that you can't compare me to somebody else, because I don't want to compete at a less than level. So I will make sure I don't do that sport that way. I don't throw a ball that way. I don't do exactly what you are doing. So you can't say I'm doing it better or I'm doing it worse. And for me, reality TV was no one understood what I was doing in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then when Facebook came out and MySpace came out, and our ability to connect with each other, didn't have to happen through the yellow pages or through, talent management or networks
Yeah.
like the way it used to. That's when I really took a step back from casting, because like I'm all about creating the space for people to flourish, but I loved people not being able to say, wait, you cast. Now we know a lot of casting people in the unscripted space that they have so solidly called it, by the way. And I'm doing the same thing in podcasting. I found this great platform called Podmatch. It's got about 13,000, I think, or so users in it, on the host side, on the guest side. These are, to me, that signifies high output, high thinking, high quality conversation, driving, igniting community conversations that can come out of content. I went to a small school of about like 2,000. My high school was about 7,000 kids all together in Staten Island. I have this like student government mind where I'm like, 14,000 people. That sounds like I can make an impact. And if I can make, if we can make the impact that I think we're capable of, 14,000 people in an economy that's growing with us. So we're not growing into negative space. The space, we are the space that is, it's your 114 episodes that are getting us to this larger space that we're suddenly in now in podcasting. And that is where, and you own it. So you want to know what you have that celebrities don't have is mostly ownership over your show. That's the unfortunate part about 20 years ago, and the power that personal brands and business owners have now, and haven't even begun to understand what you're holding on to if you own your content, the advertising, the collaborations. Think of all the platforms that are still coming out and evolving, and all of those are going to have a demand for content. Pinterest just launched a TV vertical. So now you have vertical, tappable, shoppable content on Pinterest, which is like, I don't know if it's so funny to say this, but if you're anything like me in Pinterest, where like you've pinned something once like 20 years ago, but somehow it's
been at least 3 years,
right? But it's got 700,000 people viewed it. Like those Pinterest numbers always look good. And I'm like, really? This was like a kitchen cabinet that I thought would be fun for like a podcast, a hidden podcast studio. But anyway,
that's amazing. Like I never thought about Pinterest that way, but I used to be heavily involved in Pinterest when 5 years ago I was overweight, and I started doing a lot of research, reaching out to people I know in the medical community, and I started doing keto, but I wanted to do it the right way, not the stupid way that, the internet's full of that.
Yeah.
So I started finding all these unique recipes and started posting them. And once in a while, I still get all of a sudden an email from Pinterest saying this person's reshared it or this person's commented it, because I put up, like, I spent a lot of time finding easy recipes that men and women could prepare, that were healthy, that weren't all based on bacon and butter.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
But
so
you did it.
I like how you brought up Pinterest. I never thought
but
about it until now.
you did it on a platform where people turn to for answers, though. People turn to LinkedIn for community connections. Now maybe business. People tune to Instagram for brand discovery. A lot of entertainment, a lot of emotional fulfillment happens on Insta and TikTok. So it becomes a hard space to stand out. Like I would actually rather you. So I think where I'm thinking of is like part of the discovery dynamic is like is how the person is actually seeing you, what they're doing when you become visible. So I realize I can take blogs based on podcast episodes, and there are blog aggregators. Like a blog aggregator is usually free. You go to QUUU.co and you get a free account, and you say, I want blogs about podcast marketing. When I log in, I want 10 blogs about podcast marketing. I might read them, but what I really want to do is share them to LinkedIn, Quora, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, like the text heavy social platforms. And what I can do with your podcast episode, if you're creating blogs about your podcast episodes, is get you underneath the nose of somebody looking for that subject. So I don't have to worry about the branding and all the sort of like fluff and stuff we do at the top of the episode, so to speak, so that there's discoverability, thumbnails and discoverability and all the things that we do after, where I'm able to, at the core of your message, get that under someone's nose who's specifically looking for that message. And what that does is it creates a paradigm shift where they're able to quickly consume or share. And sharing to me is the universal growth. That's like
So
universal growth action is sharing.
we have so what I'm hearing is we have great messages, but we need to know where to put that message so the
Yes.
right person can discover it. And I've struggled with that as well because there is so many social media platforms. And you mentioned Quorum, I think you said. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it. I probably have an account on it, but I've never utilized it. And there's so much noise out there in the social world. Like knowing, as you mentioned, Instagram's for one thing, LinkedIn's for another. And I find LinkedIn's become a giant pitch fest. The amount of messages I get getting pitched every day makes me nauseous. It's not the same
Yeah.
LinkedIn it used to be, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that it can't still be utilized. I don't want people to think that.
I completely agree with you. To me, I don't want to dog LinkedIn either because it's literally my number one favorite.
Yeah.
But the benefit for LinkedIn is when you search your name on Google or Bing or Yahoo, chances are, because of how Microsoft connects to social media, chances are Twitter and LinkedIn are going to be the two social platforms that show up probably even above your website, if not directly below it. And a lot of it is because of how meta tags work specifically with Twitter and with LinkedIn and websites. And it's about not increasing visibility, but allowing people to be able to know when and how you're visible, and more importantly, what they can share.
To the right people. Yeah,
The right
exactly.
people. The right people.
Yeah.
And I always use
Wow.
sharing as a metric of value. Like if I don't know if
Yeah.
it's valuable or not, I can kind of look past in the past and say, well, that was shared 50, 100, 200 times. These aggregators that I'm talking about,
I
if you
got to
want to
learn
get
more about
listed
that.
in the aggregator, vpe.tv/QUUU, that's like to the back end of the aggregator. And that's how I get your blog listed in this index that gets pushed out to thousands of people looking for this content. And they're not just people, they're blogs and they're news platforms. And also because I'm writing a blog about my podcast, I take my blog RSS. I just dropped my voice because this is like my favorite thing that my favorite thing that I'm doing right now. I take my blog RSS and I go to publishercenter.google.com and I register my blog RSS. My blog RSS becomes a Google News verified blog RSS, which means people who are looking for podcast information could find me listed as a source in Google News and pull my RSS and plant it on their website. So now I have other people distributing my content directly from my website. I have a podcast.com. I have separate RSS feeds set up for different categories. So featured podcaster is one RSS that I'm seeing most websites picking up and running, because all I'm doing is discovering and identifying, amplifying the voice of traditionally marginalized people who fall in the form of podcasting, which is my favorite right now. And I'm doing the work to discover them, but I've also done the work to make sure that I'm amplifying it. And this distribution part is part of how I can say I can help you get discovered, because I can help you get more visibility. And I can actually, if it's done through ihaveapodcast.com, in the H1 header, I'm going to geek out a little bit if this is okay. In the H1
Go
header of the article, the big fine, not the fine print, the big block print of the article, your name is first. That's what Google wants to know. It's not about your podcast. It's about you. It's not a listicle 20 under 20, 60 over 60, and you're not one small blurb and something. To get verified on these social networks, you need featured press about you, not your podcast. So that's really why I have a podcast, so I can help independent podcasters get the authority that they need to get verified in this horrible, weird, centralized world of social media that's happening right now. Interesting what's going on with Elon, but triggering.
There's so much noise out in the podcasting world. Even the people that are listening, even if you don't have a podcast, and I do have listeners that are podcasters, there's so much noise out there. There's so much clutter. And no wonder a lot of podcasts fail or die after 5 episodes.
Yeah.
You look at how many millions and millions of podcasts are out there and how many are still surviving after 50 episodes, 100 episodes. There's so much noise, and I've been there. I get discouraged about it, and I think to myself, well, why didn't this podcast engage properly? And a lot of times it's not because the content wasn't fine, that it's not excellent. It's because, like you said, what's Google doing with it, or what are the algorithms of all these different platforms? Is it getting seen by the people that need to see it? Is it getting proper exposure? Is it getting the publicity, part of me, that it deserves? Is the podcaster, doing the right things? And to answer you for myself, I'm probably doing a lot of it helter skelter, right?
Well, we're still
And
trying to figure out what works, and I'm sure the second someone comes in here and says this is the way it works, I'm sure it's not the only way.
oh my gosh,
that
I've
it
had so
works.
many people tell me that,
I don't.
and
I stay
pitch me this,
far away from that.
pitch me this course, pitch me that, and and they base it on the fact of what their own podcast is and why they
Yeah.
developed this program, and that's fine. I'm not disrespecting them. They're doing well. But just because something works well for another person may not work for my unique message or who I
Yeah.
am as an individual. Because from my, like you asked me prior to recording, my Give a Heck brand is unique to me. It doesn't mean it's unique in the world, but it's something that I pride myself in. I created it
Yeah.
and develop it and put it through all its paces to serve Vinnie.
You're
And
yeah.
and people say, well, it should be more selfish to you. I don't. That's not me, though. I don't know how to make it selfish for me, and that's probably a weakness, maybe. I don't know, but right.
That's okay. That's, to be honest, I think in part that's where I can come in as a collaborator and,
Yeah,
for example, remind people the space that you've created for me to come in and comfortably share this, how important it is to be impeccable in our word, how we need to stand behind our word, our opinions, but sometimes offering our opinions isn't enough. So what I'm going to ask your listeners to do is, with me, take a jump to the 5-star review section of this podcast. Leave those impeccable words that you feel about this moment, this episode. Let this be the episode that, by the way, finally gets you to leave Dwight a 5-star review, and then share it is what I'm going to ask you to do. Share it with me, if you remember the spelling of my last name, with Dwight, with this podcast. Share it, because that's the most valuable part that we can do. But this is the beauty of collaborating and the space of podcasting, Dwight, is that as the guest, I might be able to call on authority and inspire people to take that action. By the way, I love meeting people in the 5-star reviews. It's so weird to say. This is a special group of people who have nice things to say, constructive things to say, or have had an experience. It doesn't even have to be constructive. It could be a 5-star review, because I hate this podcast because it's so honest and just ripped into my soul. And like, you've got those pieces here to it. So I pick up on that tremendously.
well, I appreciate that. So,
And by the way, can I throw something out to you? Because
absolutely,
I'm not
go ahead.
gonna give you a pitch on any type of program or anything. I think I would be curious to see. I would pitch you this: add the word "yet" to some of your questions. Do you give a heck yet? We haven't made money yet. Because I think this linear path in podcasting is the fallacy. Creativity. I'm going to get a little quotey here. Maya Angelou says, "Creativity. The more you have, the more you have. The more you spend, the more you have. The more creativity you spend, the more you get." Warren Buffett says, "Money. The more you have, the more you spend, the less you have. The more you need to make, because the less you have, the more you spend." So why do we want podcasts to be financially and creatively successful at the same exact time? It would be wonderful if everyone felt seen and heard on their way to buying your product, but chances are they're not going to feel seen and heard until you've proven the product works. That moment of shareability, this is where we were talking about social media earlier. That moment of shareability, that matters depending on where you're leveraging on social media. This aha moment is great for Instagram, great for TikTok. I was X years old when I finally this is a great aha moment. And this is maybe the part of the journey where you might say this, when they open up the door and they finally get it, this is an emotionally triggering, this is something that's going to connect on an emotional platform versus on LinkedIn, where unfortunately most people are focused on LinkedIn talking about the services they provide as opposed to the results that they actually can get the clients. So instead of, saying I'm a media advisor and I'm here to advise on media, I'm saying I'm here to help sure you don't make the mistakes that thousands of people before you have. And I know the questions that people ask in the room that most people don't. And I'm here to help you get great deals, great discovery, great leverage, help you become a more verified, not from a social media perspective, but verified as a source. I want people to trust you so that when you speak, they copy it and they run with it. If they don't trust every word that comes out of your mouth, if they have to prove every word, every story that comes out of your mouth, then you're not a viable source. And that's exhausting for the editor, producer, someone in mass media who's trying to, you might be trying to work with to get your podcast, into the next level. And you're focused on an episode.
It's not even just about podcasts. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
It's people you talk about know, like and trusting us. And if people always have to verify that you're genuine and honest, it goes to the principle that I live my life by, which is called the 70-30 principle. And I coach on it, have been for years. Like 70% of the time, Vinnie better be writing, talking, presenting something that makes me feel like when I walk away, I can't wait to see or hear, or, your content, what you represent, I need to be excited about. 30% of the time, it may not connect with it, but I know that what you're saying is still genuine. It doesn't mean that I have to go and research everything that you say and Google it. Is he full of garbage? Is he a good guy? Can I trust him? And, bottom line, we have a society that just does not know who to trust anymore.
Yeah.
And even when the trustworthy present themselves, they're still standoffish and they got their arms crossed. And, just and I find that podcasting has helped me personally take that coffee table conversation. I tell people podcasting over six times you and I go for coffee will never collapse the time frames of connection like the podcast will by having a conversation with you. This shouldn't be an interview. It should be a conversation. It may be based on questions that I present, but in 1 hour, you and I already have connected and I feel like synergy and a connection to you. Whereas if I met you in my local community and we say, hey, Vinnie, let's go for coffee, brother. Let's go and have a bagel. Let's go have a croissant or whatever. And, okay, let's get together next week. And we chit chat and it's light type, this gets right to the meat of it. I honestly believe it is. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant here.
No, I like that. And that other version, it's funny. And that other version of me meeting up for coffee weekly, this is how I show up. Oh, do you always use Tap Pay? Because I have this Bluetooth. Oh, is that how you connect to? Like, I'm always constant. I love podcasting. I'm fascinated with podcasting.
Me too.
Because people create it. There's a lot of this structure of podcasting, two people talking and sort of group of people talking. So there's a lot of dialogue, thematically driven podcasts that are out there now, but we still even make those very differently. And I love the process. I got to be honest. There's not one single show I ever worked on. And I work in development. So I work in the beginning part of projects where you set it up for success. It could be a franchise. It could grow on and on and on. Thousands of episodes, not even hundreds of episodes. I think podcasts have the ability to hit those numbers. I think that's why I'm doing this. There's so many people now who can pitch TV shows and they can create mini series on the streamers, 4 episodes here, or 30 episodes, even 100 episodes. And I'm not poo-pooing.
Why are people's mindsets so limited to thinking though that they can have 1,000?
I know,
because I've thought about it. Oh, am I going to make like some of my friends my one friend, Patty, that I mentioned, she's been podcasting for 15 years.
Yeah.
Right. Before it was called podcast, she's been doing it. Now she has a radio television show across the US and she's amazing. And I think to myself, it's that self-limiting belief that can I do it? Do I have it in me?
You already are.
Yeah, I know I am, but I still have that creep in and, but I love the process. I like how you put that. Like even last night going and putting together, I thought to myself, and I had that mindset. Oh, I don't have everything I'm used to having to put this podcast together. Well, then I went to Podmatch And I found what I needed because the universe gave me what I wanted. And I needed to get past my headspace, my negative headspace, because it was late at night. I'd had a busy day and I figured it out. And then I got my passion and I got my excitement as I'm typing out what I wanted to discuss, which we haven't gotten to, which is fine. We're going to have another show.
Wait,
but
there's that word yet. There's that word yet again. It comes in like we haven't got there yet. and you haven't gotten that information from me yet. Like I love this I give be open to opportunities. And also I would say maybe I don't think it was luck that I had that information in a place where you were looking for it with information that you needed that I've had there for quite a while, to be honest.
I had to look for it though. I had to be open-minded. I had to get past my rigidness of having the application 114 times and not having it and not letting that slow me down, because I had the passion of originally when you reached out and I seen that you wanted to be a guest, and I thought, okay, so I Googled you and I thought, wow, this could be a great conversation. I can't wait. But then last night, diving more deep into it because of Podmatch. Again, we both are on Podmatch. For those that are into podcasting, want to get into podcasts, what he has created is I always pronounce his last name, Mr.
Sanfilippo.
Yeah, Sanfilippo.
Sanfilippo.
Alex is amazing.
Shout out to Alex.
Yeah, shout out to Alex. But you know, I just, my energy, my passion. So when I went to bed last night, I do gratefulness exercises and I'm thinking about, and I'm grateful for stuff, but my energy, because of the prepping for this, because usually I prep at least a couple days before I try to, and I let that cloud my judgment until I got into it and I started preparing all this and it just like, wow, I get to do this tomorrow. I get to have somebody that has served and touched others, and I get to bring them to my audience, maybe new audience, maybe somebody new finds this podcast. I'm shocked when I look back at old episodes that continue to climb, that continue to have listeners. It's like,
that's the yet part of podcasting, man.
Why are people doing that? Oh, you know,
as our space grows, there's going to be new ways that old content gets rediscovered. You know, in social media, it's been happening for years. People take off old posts, put on new posts, and we don't even realize it because the amount of content. I realized, for example, over a year and a half ago, I had an episode with Mandy Moore. To be honest, it's the second episode I ever came out with. I think I had a couple of hundred downloads. Imagine if I did not take a couple of hundred downloads with my Mandy Moore episode and then recut them into 10 to 15 minute episodes. And I just released one today where we talk about actionably talk about how the input dictates the output and ways to organize creative thoughts. And I got really specific and really myopic on topics with her that I was able to then cut down again. Also, I'm taking that and I'm leveraging it in press. I've pitched it to print and magazines. I have quotes and I have audio sound bites that go. The New York Post has already written an article about the episode because in it Mandy Moore and I talked about developing more skill sets on with opportunities, and directing an episode of This Is Us came up, and it was just before she had started recording the last season of This Is Us, and she shared with us that she was thinking of directing, which we got to share with the whole world that Mandy Moore was stepping into a new creative hat. I love inspiring that type of that's my relationship with people and talent, by the way.
My goodness, you inspire
already
me
in the room.
Just, you know, even what you haven't accomplished, because we're getting to the end of the episode here. What inspires me most about you and audience have just met, Vinnie, is your energy, your smile, your even your tone, the way you communicate, and your eyes. Like those that they're listening, jump over to my YouTube channel and watch this. Like, honestly, you will. Yeah, Vinnie's waving to you. You need to see the wave. Come on. But, you know, we're just about at the end. So I have one question, though, I need to ask you before we wrap up.
Okay.
Vinnie, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Oh, yeah. It comes down to that word yet for me. I think that word yet has been something that I use in TV. I'll think, should I cast another show of this topic? Do people give a heck yet? or yet. Like when it's not about I get one shot to make a difference. It's about how do I get multiple shots to make that change. Sometimes that means I have to change projects. Sometimes that means I have to change locations. Sometimes I have to wait just simply for the next year because of the cycle of media and just seasons and how people operate. But I have to be mindful of this, of the linearity of my success, and I'm open to outcomes, and some of those outcomes are financial and some of them are relationship driven, and some of those relationships turn into financial and some of the financial turns into relation, and not all of it is perfect and not all of it connects brilliantly, but it's all in my life, and that's what makes it make sense, and none of it's holding me back. There's not a single part of what I'm working on now that I feel exhausted on by the end of the day. I remember when I worked for a company that they paid me to do what I loved doing, and I only got to do what I loved to do, that I was so great at doing, when someone paid me. And then they told me the type of people or stories that I had to go out and find. And then they had control over what that final output sort of looked like. I didn't like that energy. I didn't like that in TV, they're incentivized to create more episodes, whatever it takes, because they get paid on time, not on value. And I think that part of me connected so much in talent development in TV in the earlier part of unscripted, and why I'm on this side of media, specifically podcasting. No one owns podcasting. I love that. I love that.
Too.
I mean, Spotify, Apple, there are some big players. You don't even know the power that CVS and Walgreens and like John Deere. I mean, just think about all the brands that we already trust, that if they open up a podcast directory and say, we're Home Depot, we don't create any of these podcasts, but these are the podcasts that are on our Home Depot DIY podcast network. I can imagine every person in that world trying to get in, because they're going to stand out in that podcast directory, right? Oh, a podcast directory specifically about DIY home improvement. All of this to say, it comes down to ownership over who you are, being confident in who you are, being confident in where you stand, being confident in who you work with. It's all about the who, not the how. It's not about the tools, the machines, the platforms. They're all going to change, but that you should be lucky enough to have people to do that with. I look for that type of energy, and I haven't
willing to skin your knee and get back up, and
absolutely.
don't have that
stand up for something.
Don't stand up and just get it back up, dust yourself off, move forward. Always look at life as I don't believe in mistakes. Look at it as a life lesson, that is another stepping stone for your evolution as you proceed to go forward. If everything looks messy, that's okay, as long as you're moving through the mess. All right.
Because hindsight is wonderful. By the way, thank you for the kind introduction. We kicked this episode off by saying I'm an Emmy award winning, TV. Last year I realized I hadn't won an Emmy. I went out and won that Emmy because I specifically wanted to be able to be an Emmy award winning in television. For whatever reason, on the shows that I worked on, especially early, it wasn't a category in the Emmys, casting in reality TV, when I was doing most of my work. But I know how much value that statue brings to the perception of my impact in television. Regardless of what I know I really truly did, I still feel like that little lady over my right shoulder is one of the ways that I can signify that I'm a credible voice, in this industry. So
you've impacted me because of you, not because of what I said in the intro. You earned that intro and so much more, right? You are a fantastic individual. Thanks, and I hope that you're welcome. I hope people reach out to you. And that's the last thing I'm going to ask you. How do people reach out and find you?
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm sure you have some social media information here in the podcast notes. VPE.tv. If you're looking for any documentation on over 100 awards worthy of winning, 50 creator platforms that pay content creators. If you're a podcaster and you're not getting paid, I recommend you put your name on these lists. It's not even anything. There's no weird descriptions, or it's not a job application. You're just literally connecting your name to your platform and offering up some data to an organization that could be looking for you. And I make a couple of hundred, if not a couple of $1,000s a month from being in these creator marketing platforms or influencer marketing platforms.
The amount
Here
of
to help.
information that you've given me and those listening, gold, brother.
We'll do more. We'll come back.
I want you to come back. I think we should record in the next days and have a part 2 right after part 1, because I haven't even gone through anything I wanted to ask you, and I can't
All right.
imagine what you talk about.
Let's do it.
Man, you're
And we'll throw
you're
in
an absolute
conversion.
pleasure. You're a
Thanks,
pleasure,
bud.
brother.
We'll throw
You
in
really
conversion.
are.
I don't, it's not just about discovery. It's nice to get discovered. It's nice to be visible. It's nice to be shared. If it's not converting, if these actions aren't supporting your brand, the finances behind your message, the finances behind, what you're creating.
My brand is about give a heck. And
Yeah,
you
I love
do. It's about people that are going and serving. If it's somebody that's an empath coach, I've had the most unique guests. If you look back through my library, I've had some of the most unique people that like I just had a few weeks ago. She's a 3-time award-winning morning show host, and I've met her at a couple conferences. Cheryl Devon, she was on. She's amazing.
Awesome.
And her stories, I can't wait to have her on again or meet her at the next event and where we hang out. And I love it.
Yeah, I'll be at Podfest. If you happen to be at Podfest in January, I'll be there.
No, unfortunately, okay. I have at the same time, I got invited to be on a TV show in Dallas by a guest of mine who I met at another conference this year in May. She invited me to be on her TV show. I have to be in Dallas.
Cool.
And I'm
gigs.
Excited. I'm still in shock that she even wanted me on.
I can't wait to tune in. I'm excited.
Some of the people that she's had on her TV show just floors me that she'd even want me on. But then I've had other people, because it's that, that mindset where we, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I had people saying, well, why wouldn't she want you on? Okay, well, it's the first time I've been asked to be on a TV show, so I'm excited for that. But yes, we'll eventually meet, Vinnie. But I appreciate you coming on, brother. This is the end of the episode. Sorry for taking you over a few minutes, but you're a plethora of knowledge and kindness, and your energy. People, you don't think energy can come across on video or on audio? BS, it can. So. Right. Listen to the voice, listen to what people and how they communicate. And if you really want the full meal deal, like you get at the fast food place, go on YouTube and watch it, because Vinnie's smile is amazing. So I'm going to wrap this up, brother, with my tag. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn. It is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.